My name is Nadia Hassan, and this is BFM Business Case Studies, the show that brings you the inside and outs of how a business works. We bring you the history of a company, what they did wrong or right, and so much more. We will be taking a closer look at the most talked about airline of 2014, Malaysia Airlines. In its history, MAS has transformed and rebranded itself a number of times. But by early 2014, the national carrier's business stood on a precipice. So how did they get into where they are right now? Could it be because of one man, a united body, or is it just plain bad luck? Well, let's find out. Malaysia Airlines is the first and oldest carrier of Malaysia. The flagship officially started its operations as Malaysia Airlines in 1972. It also has two subsidiary airlines, Firefly, the budget airway, and MAS Wings, the regional airline operating the rural air services in East Malaysia, focusing on inter-Borneo flights. Fast forward though to the end of 2014, and the national carrier has been bought over and privatised by Khazanah. Although MAS has contributed an estimated 6.9 billion towards Malaysia's GDP, the company has been in the red for about half of its listed life. It had an estimated 8.4 billion in cumulative net losses from 2001 to June 2014. And along the way, the government helped pump in another 17.4 billion to ensure that MAS didn't fail. So what happened? To pinpoint the exact moment where the ground beneath MAS began to crumble is actually impossible. It can be safely said, however, that it was a culmination of several factors: mismanagement, staff that resembled a legion, and skyrocketing oil prices that led to MAS's fall from grace. But the straw that finally broke the camel's back was the disappearance of MH370 and the downing of MH17. Some say the start of MAS's woes can be traced back to the time of Tan Sri Tajuddin Ramli, when he was the head of the airline. Tajuddin Ramli was part of a coterie of influential businessmen close to former Finance Minister Tun Daim Zainuddin. Back in 1994, Tajuddin took out a 1.79 billion loan to buy a 32% stake in MAS, making him its largest shareholder. However, under his tenure, there were numerous rumours of mismanagement, which ranged from moving its cargo hub to an expensive base to allegations of overspending. According to market talk at the time, MAS had actually ramped up its fleet and operations in order to match a network that was 3 times the size of what it was at the time. However, what eventually happened was that its network actually shrank, leaving MAS with a very high cost per unit compared to its peers. The same industry observers also pointed to the speculations that Qantas was going to buy into MAS following the financial crisis. Although nothing came out of it, industry observers say that the deal came very close. But due to certain parties vested in protecting their own interests, the deal never came to fruition. This shows that there were plans to save MAS even early on, so the question remains as to why. One of the decisions Tajuddin made was to relocate MAS's cargo operations in Amsterdam and Frankfurt to a single hub in Hahn, Germany. In fact, in later years, MAS alleged that the move caused losses of between 10 million and 16 million ringgit a month. When the government took over MAS in 2001, the project was terminated and even then resulted in a 300 million ringgit arbitration claim against the national carrier. Tajuddin's personal expenditures also raised a lot of eyebrows. Evidence from Asia Week's interview with Tajuddin revealed that he had purchased a 93.5 million ringgit business jet for MAS, a private Gulfstream jet for himself, a $12 million yacht, and owned the nation's biggest durian plantation at Rawang. Eventually in 2002, MAS sued Tajuddin for allegedly causing the flag carrier to suffer losses in excess of 8 billion ringgit. Looking back at the facts, Tajuddin's exit from MAS was as controversial as his entry. Back when he first came in, he claims his hands were forced by former Prime Minister Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad and Daim Zainuddin to buy MAS. Tun Mahathir later rejected this notion, saying he wanted to swap his Malaysian Helicopter Shares, a company with just 2 aircraft, for MAS Shares, a company with well over 60 aircraft. The government rejected his plan and asked that he pay in cash instead, which forced him to borrow 1.8 billion ringgit. He also said Tajuddin was forced by his own modest collateral to borrow heavily and was elated over his purchase. The arrival of the Asian financial crisis laid bare all of MAS's weaknesses, pushing it further into the red in 1997, suffering losses of 260 million ringgit. MAS started laying off staff, trimming its fleet, and even delaying aircraft deliveries and major aircrafts up to 3 years in order to get back what was lost. Eventually, the government had had enough. Tajuddin's exit in 2002 was through a share buyback by the government, for which he sold the airline for 1.79 billion ringgit or 8 ringgit per share. This was a premium of RM4.32 or 117% for each share, which was trading at RM3.68 when the deal was signed, resulting in a public uproar. The reverberations can still be felt till this day. Years later, in 2006, Mas and a number of companies had filed lawsuits against Tajuddin for the debts he owed. This included Celcom, CIMB, and Telekom Malaysia, among others. Coming back to Mas, the government initiated the widespread asset unbundling program in order to save it. By then, the fickleness of the airline industry meant that things had changed once again. Fuel, which represents almost a third of the cost component in an airline, had seen its price increase by 138% between 2004 and 2005 to $2.5 a gallon. At the same time, AirAsia came in as a competitor with its low-cost model. It competed with Malaysia Airlines on a number of its domestic routes, eating away at the latter's market share.